Please present a memento to Mr. Nilangshu De.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and once again, thank you for your time, for the patience, to being a good audience, and we are indeed grateful to you for having come and kicked off this important conclave for the state very soon after the recent changes in the ministry. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give us some time to for the changeover to the next session. May we request the delegates from the overseas to please join us in the ITC room that is adjacent to this hall. It will be this side. That is, if you go out, it will be on your left. May we request the delegates from overseas to please join us at ITC room. Our honorable ministers will have an interaction with you at the ITC room. May we request the delegates from Kolkata to please be seated and give us 5 minutes time to change over to the next session. Plenary session, it has two parts: doing business in West Bengal and business opportunities in Middle East. In part A, doing business in West Bengal, we have Mr. Ambarish Das Gupta, Vice President of Bengal Chamber and Partner and Head Management Consulting and Eastern Regional Leader, KPMG Advisory Services Private Limited. We are expecting Sri Ashish Thakur, Secretary Food Processing Industries and Horticulture Department. Mr. Sudip Dotto, Senior Vice President and Divisional Head Operations. Mr. Sudip Dotto, Senior Vice President and Divisional Head Operations IL and FS. Mr. N.R. Dotto, Chairman and Managing Director of Camellia Group. And Mr. Shomit Roy, Chairman of Rice Group. In the part B, we have Mr. Sudesh Agarwal, Chairman of Indian Business and Professional Council UAE, and Mr. K.M. Varghese, Acting President of Indian Business and Professional Network, Qatar. Mr. Agarwal and Mr. Varghese will join us. May we request the speakers of the plenary session part A, that is doing business in West Bengal, to please come to the dais. Mr. Ambarish Das Gupta, Mr. Ashish Thakur, Mr. Sudip Dotto, Mr. N.R. Dotto, and Mr. Shomit Roy. They will join. Break, and you may please join us for tea coffee at the Yule Terrace, that is at the corridor just outside the hall. We are waiting for the overseas delegates to join us before we begin our plenary session. Thank you.
Mr. Ambarish Das Gupta, Vice President BCCNI and Partner and Head Management Consulting and Eastern Regional Leader, KPMG Advisory Services Private Limited, to kindly come up to the stage. I would also request Sri Ashish Thakur, IS, Secretary Food Processing Industries and Horticulture and Department, Government of West Bengal, to kindly come up to the stage. I'd also request Mr. N.R. Datta, Chairman and Managing Director of Camellia Group, to kindly come up to the stage. And I would also request Mr. Samit Roy, Chairman of Rice Group, to kindly come up to the stage, sir. We are starting the session in few minutes. I'd request everyone to kindly take your seat. We are starting the next session. We are also requesting Mr. Sudip Datta, Senior Vice President and Divisional Head Operations ILNFS, to kindly come up to the stage, sir. Thank you. We are starting the next session immediately. I would request few of our overseas delegates are present. I would request Mr. Ambarish Dasgupta to kindly take the stage so that we can start the speech.
ওটা ডিসপ্লে হচ্ছে ওটা না ওখানে রাখবে না কিন্তু ওনারা ও ওটাই চলছে আচ্ছা আচ্ছা এটা দিয়ে দিন Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, the honorable dignitaries on the stage, and a very strong welcome to all the non-resident investors, entrepreneurs of Bengal, non-resident Bengal people who have come in today. I'm not sure or know how many of them are here now or they're still in that room, but unfortunately, if they are not here, possibly my presentation to the Bengalis out here or the people who are already in Bengal, to them it will really not make much meaning or sense, because most of the things that I have been asked to share with are quite known to you. So it was more made for them to understand that why Bengal is right now not a bad place or quite a good place for making an investments. So I was therefore wanting to wait for another 5-10 minutes to them to finish up there, but I think it's taking a little more than what we anticipated. And that's what I thought. Shukonda, are they coming now? Okay, so I'll just give 2-3 more minutes.
Continue with his presentation. Sorry for the delay.
Good afternoon. I'm back again. I started, then I paused, then I'm back again. Firstly, a very strong welcome to all the non-resident Calcuttans who have come in, and of course a very strong welcome to all the other audience and also the honorable dignitaries on the stage. The area that I'm right now going to focus on, and I'll give you my introduction in what context do I actually come into this, is more on some of the parameters of West Bengal. And if we are really considering West Bengal as an investment destination, what are the primary things that an investor would actually like to look for, and how West Bengal is doing with respect to those parameters. I represent a firm, KPMG. KPMG is a service firm which is in audit, tax and advisory, and quite well entrenched and well placed in the MISA countries, primarily from where all our honorable guests are coming today. So KPMG has also, apart from the offices in all major cities, we are also quite well placed in West Bengal, and we are expanding significantly in West Bengal, and that also shows because we are not an organization who would have actually expanded if that particular state or that particular city did not have an investment or a business potential. We are actually investing into that state and in that city because we are seeing really a lot of opportunities coming up. Now, one of the area that we focus on is whenever a new entrepreneur outside or any cross-border investment is trying to get into the country, or a cross-border investment is trying to leave the country, there are multiple areas that an investor or an investee would actually be wanting to look into. The regulations, the structure of the fund, how do I open up an office, how do we really get all my processes set up, how do I take care of the taxation part, what is the transfer pricing relationship between my newly formed entity and my parent body will be there. How do I handle with the government? How do I get all the regulatory clearances? How do I get talents from that part of the country? How do I expand the market? What should be my supply chain? So that's where we come in, and that's where we want to hold their hands, and therefore we give them all kinds of advices and implementation support that any such investor would actually want to have when they go to a completely new, unknown territory. Now, by virtue of doing that, by virtue of being associated with a huge number of MNCs, private equity firms, joint ventures, VCs, corporates all across the world and in India, for whom we have actually done this kind of strategy study and this kind of handholding of that implementation. And by virtue of being associated with the West Bengal government also from a long time and getting through all the processes of the West Bengal government, we have come to a kind of conclusion on many of the parameters on what an entrepreneur or what a new entrepreneur coming to a country would actually be looking forward to. And based on that, we actually created this compendium. Now, this could be a little unattractive, a little boring data compilation for you, but if you have a little bit of patience and later on, if you apply your mind, you will see that this data, which at the outset may look a little boring and little drab data, will give you some degrees of insights. And also, in addition to my presentation, there is a booklet which I am not sure whether you have got it. If you have not got it, I would request you to take that booklet also, where beyond West Bengal also we have identified what are the Companies Act, what are the corporate rules and regulations, which regardless of the state you will be subjected to, just to make your investment decisions a little easier. And we would be always there in terms of giving you any kind of advice and handholding for that. Now, we have heard few things in the morning from the finance minister, from the industry minister, and from few other ministers also. Some of the data that he has already articulated could be found common in this. Now, but there are multiple things which he mentioned, but we chose 6 points which we felt are quite relevant. One is that the state's automation, so you may consider e-governance as one part, but the state's automation is increasing. It could be e-governance, and whenever you are coming in, all kinds of regulations that through which you need to go, all kinds of compliances that you really need to go through for the state, that is going through a significant amount of automation, reducing your touch points with the government officials significantly. And therefore, that is streamlining the processes, streamlining the efficiencies, and removing any other kind of hardships that you might have felt if there was more manual intervention. That of course has given us another advantage, which is the state's revenue has really grown by a significant percentage. The state, which we evaluated, and we also played a little role in the preparation of the administrative calendar which the state has now produced, and we worked very intensely with the industry department. And also we have been on the other side, not just on the state side, but on the other side, on the investor side, and both those data added together, we found that that state, unlike or contrary to much of the perceptions which may be having, the FDI investments have been quite steady. And this is at a situation from April 2012 to February 2013, when the FDI flow in the country have increased now over the last 4 or 5 months. But if you take it over the whole annualized period of these 12 months, at the beginning 8-9 months of this period did not really have, the whole country did not have a good FDI flow. Regardless of that, this state had a good FDI flow of $361 million US dollar. The industry and the investment policy of 2013 announced a lot of incentives and a lot of subsidies and that, but there are two things. I'm not actually here just to promote the industrial incentives that they have brought in, because it's like if you like an industrial incentive out there, possibly some other state can also immediately throw that incentive to you. But what I would say, there are two key things which you in mind is that the industrial policy is in place now. So, and the industrial policy, there is two parts of that industrial policy. You can go to the website, you can talk to anybody in the department, talk to us, we can explain. There is one mother industrial policy. And that has all the components of subsidies on the acts, the regulations, the entry tax, and all those various things, state control various parameters that you need to abide by. There is another additional section which is more on the sectors. Each and every sector has got its own subsidies and differentiated offerings. So that is a second section as an annexure which comes up. So that's the one good part of that, that it has an industry-oriented view also. But the second part is that I'm just not saying this is a very populist kind of subsidy that has been given only to bring investors to the state. What we feel is that it's a very balanced thing, because there are multiple things which you think, which you may see there, which at the initial look you may feel that is little detrimental from a subsidy or an incentivization perspective. But if we make everything very attractive for the investor at the cost of the state's GDP, at the cost of the state earning, in the long term, it's not good for the investor also. So therefore, we felt it's a very strong balancing between the state's earning as well as the investors' incentives. The fourth point, as we interact in the dinner, I will get to know you much more. But so therefore, the areas of your business that you are interested in. But this is the first state which actually announced the PPP policy. This is the first state which announced the PPP policy, the public-private participation policy. And the public-private participation policy, once when they have announced as the first state, this is also the state, and since we are working with all the states now from KPMG, so we have an exposure to what the other states are also doing. Not only the announcement has come out first, but the actions taken on the infrastructure, tourism, real estate, and few other areas, namely these three, agriculture and one or two more. These 4 or 5 leading areas have seen the first stage of prime mover advantage, the first action on those PPPs also. There are multiple organizations who have actually been engaged as the transactions advisor. So if you want to invest on your own completely, you invest. If you want to come as a PPP partner, you can come in as a PPP partner also. And the actions out there are extremely streamlined, efficient, and very, very clean. The road and the urban infrastructure, the large amount of investments to the tune of USD 1551 million planned in road and urban structure. Now this is something for the state. But then there are multilateral agencies like ADB, DFID, and not World Bank at this point in time, not DFID so much, but ADB and World Bank and JICA. The 3 multilateral agencies' investments plans for the state's road and infrastructure is not factored into this 1551 million pound or 1551 USD that we have shown here. You may be knowing, and which is an extremely good thing, which somehow the industry presentation missed out, that while the Bombay-Delhi corridor, which is a 2020 project, the Bombay-Delhi corridor is being very highly publicized, and people are talking about that with the JICA investments backing that Bombay-Delhi corridor. At the same time, the Delhi-Amritsar-Kolkata corridor, same under the, but that's under the World Bank, has also now got a clearance. So therefore, there is the similar corridor which is coming from Delhi to Calcutta also, and that has got the World Bank clearance. And now it is the project, how that will be done, the planning and all those things are happening, and that is a significant boost to the Calcutta or eastern region's economy. It's another one from Chennai to Bangalore which is happening, which is on a much smaller scale, but and if the Delhi-Bombay is by 2020, the Delhi-Calcutta is slated to be 2022. So that corridor is also now up, but that is not included in this 1551 thing. And then there is a huge amount of land available under the Sikh industry. Now, there are 2 things here. One is the availability of the land, which the government, by the engagement of the transaction advisors, are clearing it up. One of the biggest projects in the state which is going on is on the lands available under the tram depot, but that is only in the city. It will go out in some other areas for the whole state. But so that's going on right now. But the other point of attraction here is that a Sikh industry's land is not only just being taken, but if anybody is one to take over a distressed asset, If there is a, because anybody doesn't want to just start afresh, they just want to start, just pick up a distressed asset out here. So there is a mechanism now being set up in taking over those distressed assets also in an appropriate manner. And again, and I just missed to telling you that my colleagues from audit, tax and advisory from KPMG, I have requested them all to be here so that over the lunch and during the discussions, if you really need to understand some more about the regulations, they can give you much more detailed knowledge about that. So it is not only the releasing of the land, but acquisition of the distressed assets also can give you a jump start. Now, to really not to take you to the details of the West Bengal's demography and all those things, which by now I'm sure you already have known quite well, the few industries which is, we are all talking about the various large manufacturing industries, all those things, but the few areas that we have identified where we are at this point in time leader, and if anybody is at this point in time leader, and if anybody is interested to have any industry associated to them, they may also get a little bit of advantage. One is the leather, the leading exporter, the largest producer of the jute, the second largest tea producing state, major producer of potato. So therefore anyone interested in the supply chain, warehouse management, taking of the agri products to the consumers, that's a huge investment area. Coal-rich state, leading fish producer and leading state in the national IT industry map. And the leading fish producer, I mean there are umpteen number of projects which we are getting every day when we are proposals which are getting for the fisheries, for the prawns, all those in the areas of the Flori, PC, Agri. The combination of these three is now attracting highest amount of investments proposals and the supply chain related to that. There are some people who are more in the production and owning of it, some people who are more on the supply chain part of it. The West Bengal's advantage, as we know the geographical advantage being the corridor to the Southeast Asia gateway, Singapore. So those are the things I'm sure you all have already assets, so I'm not getting into that. But one of my own personal experience, apart from the Singapore and the Asia Pac, which West Bengal could be a very good gateway. Now I had an interaction, and from my organization along with some of my colleagues out here, we had an interaction with the Bhutan king and also with all the ministries of Bhutan, a very strong good one-on-one interaction with the Bhutan, also the countries where the king had a discussion with us. Now very strangely, the king tremendously expressed his desire to increase the bilateral trade with West Bengal. I mean, it could be various things. Like you may be knowing there are multiple power projects because of the water projects based on that. All those hydel power projects are going on in Bhutan. They're producing 20,000 megawatt of power. And those 20,000 megawatt of power they are producing, and we will be buying back 10,000 megawatt of power from that. So they are really wanting West Bengal and Bhutan, as the king wanted, in the sector of education, in the sector of tourism, to jointly promote, and therefore also to promote infrastructures and roads and some of these Bhutanese products, and also to take West Bengal produced products to the Bhutan, and very keen to work out a bilateral business relationship between West Bengal and Bhutan. I discussed about you the West Bengal's policy, the excellent connectivity. We have mentioned excellent connectivity, but I shouldn't really say that it is excellent in comparison to all other states, but it's improving. I mean, air connectivity it's improving. It's not possibly excellent at this point in time, but it is improving. And road also is significantly improved. I mean, what it was maybe possibly 5 years back. And you heard that there are 22 universities, sizable, rich institutes in West Bengal. And interestingly, we are also working with the National Skill Development Corporation. Bengal Chamber also has worked, and KPMG also has worked with the NSDC, the National Skill Development Corporation, the Council, sorry. The National Skill Development Council today is spending huge amount of money in developing skills around the country. West Bengal is the state which features highest in their rank now in terms of their investments, in terms of their targets, in terms of their objective on creation of the number of skilled manpower. These are not the white-collared skill. These are all on the blue-collared skills manpower. And so West Bengal features as the highest in terms of that skill development promotion, according to them. You can see the state's GDP as against the national. As I mentioned, Agri, PC, Flori all combined together is really one which is doing well. Industry and services. And we have included tourism. Tourism is another area where West Bengal is very keen and promoting investments. We have included tourism under services. So I have given you some idea on the FDI flow, the PPP opportunities which is opening up, which is huge. I mean, there are multiple PPP opportunities that have already been released. So there are promoters who have already applied, bidded for those PPP opportunities, infrastructure, entertainment media also. We have recently gone, the state has recently gone for a large entertainment media, the entertainment sector PPP as well. Infrastructure we discussed, and infrastructure of the airports, infrastructure has been improved significantly. We have a new airport now. Another one will be coming up in the Bengal Electropolis, one will be coming up. But what we definitely need is a much more connectivity. We have got connectivity with the China now because of the new airlines coming up. We have good connectivity to Singapore. We have Emirates flying to the Middle East on a daily basis. But connecting directly to the US and the European countries is still a challenge, which will possibly within 1 or 2 more years it will get cleared. And if there is a new government coming up, I'm not sure what their policies will be there. So hopefully with the new government coming up, many of the proposals on some of the airlines connectivities which are pending will possibly get cleared. I have tried to articulate some of the growth stories here on the railways, power, ports and infrastructure, because I identified not so much of the manufacturing, because I thought any investor would first be looking for connectivity, power, talents. These are some of the key things that they would actually be looking for. So I wanted to highlight some of the major transportation project which is going on in the state. There is also a major project going on the port, because I'm sure you might have not got a very good feeling about the ports that we are having today because of the siltation not being done, because of the dredging not being done appropriately. The navigability has significantly reduced, but we are having a new seaport coming up which has already been cleared by the central, which another by 2020 that new port will be a deep sea port will be coming up by 2020, and in Rasulpur. And also there are a lot of activities happening around Haldia, which because of many other reasons they are not disclosing, but within another 6 to 7 months we expect to have a further improved container terminal and improved port in Haldia also. The new land allotment policy passed in December 12 introducing uniformity, and I'm not getting into this land as a subject, but I don't think that's really a problem, because there have been a lot of questions around the land policy of the state, but we have worked with multiple investors and I really don't think that the problem is as acute as it is being projected to be in West Bengal, the land. And if anybody has any kind of issues or need clarifications, I'm very much available to discuss with you the land policies of the state also, apart from the ministers and the bureaucrats can give you much bigger explanation to you. Now, the industrial clusters, creation of quality infrastructure in the industrial cluster, I mean, the state is taking a lot of steps, but if you are the big investors coming in, possibly the clusters could be your OEMs. I'm not sure whether you would like to get into the clusters, or your suppliers, you would like to see that how your supplier belt is being created, as Tamil Nadu has created clusters more from a supply perspective. So I'm not sure exactly in which industries would you be coming in. We can discuss this in the evening when we have much more interaction. Relationship manager and the clearance of the mega investments for the state, which you heard from the minister, and as I mentioned that from KPMG also our people will be very, very happy to work with you and give you any kind of suggestions and facilitate, and Bengal Chamber of course is also there to facilitate any such investments you want to make.